Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of University City, Texas. It is Tuesday, July 18, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order now at 6:34 and call for Quorum Check, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Buck. Here.
We'll talk to him in a minute. Hopefully he's finding a Wi-Fi. He'll be with us in a minute.
Councilmember Bulman.
Here.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Councilmember Najarian.
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
Okay, the quorum is present. We shall proceed, and we'll await the coming of Mr. Buck as soon as he's able to join us. So this evening's invocation will be given by Councilmember Goolsby, and I'll lead us in the pledges. So whatever you want, please.
Please bow. Lord, we want to thank you for this day that you've given us. Lord, we want to thank you for all the blessings that you give us. Lord, today we ask that you give us relief from the heat. But we all understand all things in your time. Lord, be with our first responders, be with our military, be with their families. Lord, in your name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you everyone for coming in. And a record heat day in the San Antonio area of 104 degrees. And it was registered at Randolph Air Force Base as well, so I guess that's where we are. So thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate your consideration and your interest in this. One thing I'll announce first of all is that we have a little bit of a speaker problem this evening. So if you are going to be speaking, make sure that you say it really loud so we can all hear each other because everything is being recorded. And if we keep any of the discussion to a whisper, I think that would be great. So again, the recordings of these are really important for everybody so we can document what's happening in council meetings. Okay, so let's press on for our first item this evening, which is tab number A, which is to consider the minutes of the Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 regular city council meeting.
Move to approve.
Motion made by Councilmember Najarian.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Goolsby. Discussion. All right, call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck. Sorry. Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. So we'll move on now to our next item, which is citizens to be heard. It's also the opportunity for citizens to discuss with council items of concern or interest that they may have. We welcome everybody's comments, and it's informative only. We don't take any action on these discussions, but I think it's really important for you all to know that we really appreciate input that we get from our citizens. And we've had two individuals that have signed up this evening, so I'll call you up in order that you signed up. And the first one is Mr. Ken Mitz. Please give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Ken Metz. I live at 13410 Adonis, Universal City. And I apologize to City Council, the Mayor, Kim Turner, Kristen Mueller, for my email yesterday. Hindsight is a little bit harsh, and sometimes my cynicism of government gets the best of me. So I want to thank Kristen for the conversation I've had with her briefly on the CDC, answered some of my questions, and we're going to meet later for a more extended conversation. I'm confident, based on the conversation with Kristen and a short conversation with the Mayor, that the concerns I had and expressed in my email yesterday will be addressed tonight during City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitz. Appreciate it. Okay, next individual signed up this evening is Mr. Bernard Rubal. Mr. Rubal.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, the items that I'd like to address tonight have to do with tabs D and C, and overall, essentially reference to what are we doing when we do the comprehensive plan. Essentially, we're coming up on critical items that the city needs However, it's never been addressed as part of the comprehensive plan. What's the comprehensive plan for? Is the comprehensive plan only to change the drainage of the golf course, or is it for developing our city for its future needs? I think we have to reflect on that tonight, specifically since what is coming to you has not been in the comprehensive plan, period. Okay, so either there's been a deficiency in planning for comprehensive plan, a process that's not quite right. It has to be adjusted to be associated with our city requirements. Our city requirements, okay? So basically, please consider that. The other item that I'd like to discuss is I have an open records request, and it reads as follows with slight change. The city manager provided several numbers for council meetings for the amount of interfund loans for the golf course and convention center. Please provide the records request a list by date, expenses, and amount of each interfund loan. Audit suggests that general fund loan practices may have begun as early as 2003. However, I'm most interested in general fund, capital fund, commercial loans, lease fees, unreported or underreported expenses that were paid by the city with funds other than golf course funds, which may be construed as interfund loans. Since the city assumed management of golf course in 2005, it's also unclear if the city manager's accounted for unreported administrative management costs during this period. For example, just within the last month, the oversight administrative management of the golf course has gone to a previously unreported $200,000 to now in excess of $300,000. And essentially, I just want council to get an accounting for what those numbers really are. The city manager stood up at this council and said, oh, we have three numbers for golf course operation. Mr. Ritt's number, Mr. Vaughan's number. What are the numbers? And finally, council members, I read the bold type. Citizens to be heard are informative only. No council discussion or actions will be taken. I ask council, how is council's process not different than just the city's renting for 3 minutes? Where has your history been in this new council for moving things to resolution? It's been always tabled for discussion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you, Mr. Vaughan. Okay, did anyone else want to address council that didn't get a chance to sign up earlier? All right, fine, let's go ahead and proceed. Next item is our business session. We're going to have a public hearing in a minute, so this is no tab. What I'll do is we'll have a presentation by staff, and then we'll open it up. I'll open up the public hearing, so every one of you will have an opportunity to discuss the issue. And after that is completed, then we'll move on to tab number B. So tab number 1 really is basically, it's going to be a public hearing, a request for a specific use permit at Coronado Square Shopping Center, 2326 Pat Booker Road, Suite 968, CD 5047D, Block 2, Lot 1, Brunswick Subdivision, to allow an administrative and business office use in a C2 retail district per zoning ordinance 581. So I'll turn it over to our city manager, get discussion, then I'll open it up. There may be some from the company as well present, and then we'll open up the public hearing. So, Ms. Stern?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This went before the Planning and Zoning Commission just a few weeks ago. Michael is here and he'll give you an update on the specific use request and the location. And Mayor, you are correct, we do have representatives here this evening. Thank you.
Okay, good. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As mentioned in your staff memo, TexDocs LLC is looking to locate an office at 2326 Pat Booker Road, Suite 968, which is the second floor in the Coronado Square Shopping Center. It's currently vacant. It's been vacant for a number of years. As you're aware, this property is zoned C2 retail. In order to have an administrative and office type use at that location, a specific use is required. The specific use, just a reminder, is tailored if it's granted to that specific user. It does not run with the land. So if that business operates there and then vacates the property at any time in the future, the specific use permit is null and void. And then another user that wants to do the exact same thing would have to go through the same process. We did send out 30 notices as required by state law. We have not received any feedback or inquiries from the public. And let's see what else. As mentioned, the property owner and I believe the applicant are here to answer any questions for you. There we go. And it did go before Planning Commission last weekend, received an 8-0 vote for a recommendation of approval.
Okay. Anything else? Sir, please come up and give us your name.
Council, Patrick Christensen, 310 South St. Mary's.
Mayor, I'm sorry, you need to open the public hearing.
Oh, no, okay, no, they can make a comment before the public hearing.
Sure.
Can't they?
Okay.
And then we'll open it up so they can have heard what you said. Go ahead.
Here on behalf of the applicant, I'm here with Mr. Schoolcraft, who will actually be in attendance. Make sure everyone understands, we're just talking about that back corner, the upstairs space that's been vacant for a number of years. Probably not well suited for actual retail customers. You can't really see it up there. So we're just asking for specific use permit for the office. Amazingly, Mr. Schoolcraft was one of the previous tenants there before for years, and he would just like to come back to where he was before. And if you have any specific questions about the use and what he does, he'd be happy to answer those.
We'll do that when it comes to our opportunity there. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, let me go ahead. It's now, 6:45. Let's open up the public hearing. Would anyone like to address council on this particular issue? Okay, forever hold your peace. All right, very good. I'll just go and close it at 6:46 then. And we'll go then to tab number B, which is to discuss and consider ordinance 655-K-2023, PC 577-SU015, an ordinance approving a specific use permit to Tech Stocks for LLC for an administrative and business office use in a C2 retail district on property located at 2326 Pat Booker Road, Suite 968, Universal City, and providing for a non-severability and establishing an effective date. This will be our first reading. So let's open it up to council for questions, comments towards staff or Tech Stocks. Anybody have any specific? Yes, Ms. Bulman.
I guess mine's more of a comment than an actual question. But my hope is that their moving is not part of an EDC agreement to buy their building that's in the aviation district, mainly because for them, it's not a guarantee that everyone on city council is going to agree to the purchase of their current business on Pat Booker. So I'm just hoping for their sake that they know that if that's something that the EDC is working on with them. That's it.
Okay. Move for approval. Okay, motion made by Councilmember
Second.
Goolsby, second by Councilmember Fitzpatrick. Any other discussion? Anyone? All right, call for the vote then, please. Oh, you're back here. That's right.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. And I hope that things will go really well for you. Thanks for coming to see. Appreciate it, Mr. Schoolcraft.
I don't know what that is.
Very good.
Well, good to know.
Let's move on to tab number C then, which is to discuss and to consider the presentation on proposed street lawn packages. City Manager, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, last year the voters did approve a $30 million bond package. So Randy did go out and engage his engineers to go back and do an assessment of the streets that were eligible for construction or reconstruction. And so they're going to present their findings tonight based on our previous discussions about bundling them into $6 million projects. They're going to present some bundles to you, and council will need to provide them some direction this evening on the information that they provided. So with that, I'll turn it over to Randy. You want to introduce your consultants and talk about the process they went through?
Mayor Council, tonight we have JM and Host, both from HCR. They have been the ones that have worked our last bonds, the $20 million bonds. They've been a part of the street assessment as well from our $19.5 million that we did. So we tasked them to go ahead and look into this proposed bond. So they got a presentation for you tonight. I won't steal their thunder. I'll let them talk about it, but they have some, they'll go over the assessment and then they'll go over the packages that we've looked into on the proposed eligible streets that we presented to you. Okay, Mr. Jan?
Thank you, Randy.
And you don't need to yell, but make it a little, so everybody can hear you, because it's just being recorded, they don't want to hear it.
Okay.
I can run it for you.
Oh.
There you go. Thank you, Host.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think, Mr. Buck, are you with us, sir?
I am, sir. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. I
Very
see.
well. The circumstances are not ideal right now. We are in the Grand Tesa National Forest, and we just got to the point where we have a cell phone signal. My lovely wife, also known as my chief of staff, took a bit of a tumble out here while she was trying to guide me, and we had to wait for a little bit. I apologize for that, but we're in the car driving. Please continue the meeting, sir.
Okay, we're on the presentation on the street bond packages, but Mr. Buck, so just glad you're with us. Glad you could join us. Okay, sir. please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is J.M. Gonzalez. I'm with HCR Engineering. I'm Transportation Section Manager. And with me tonight, I have Coach Shin, who's going to help me present on the 2023 Street and Drainage Bond Program. Just a brief overview of how this presentation is going to be presented and organized. Talk a little bit about the bond program, past, present, selection and prioritization process, the preliminary cost estimates, and the recommended streets, as well as the recommended packages.
Smart board.
So looking back at 2010, as Randy mentioned, $19.5 million that were passed by the citizens in Universal City. You can see on the graphic on the right, the blue streets are all the streets that were a part of that program. With that, we extended the life of existing pavement in addition to reconstruction. So there were some streets that we were able to mill and overlay, rehab, provide base repair, and extend the life of those streets without necessarily reconstructing them as in a whole. We addressed both functional and structural failures. So structural failures, that's pretty simple. You go out, you see the streets falling apart, and we fixed it. But also functional deficiencies. In other words, you might remember there were some streets that might have some gaps in sidewalks. Completed the sidewalks, completed those gaps. Pedestrians, ADA accessibility, intersections, looked at curb ramps and such at intersections, as well as operational improvements of some streets, Kitty Hawk Road, Aviation Boulevard, put in turn lanes, improved operations on those streets as a whole, making them fully functional. In fact, with East Aviation Boulevard, we were able to connect the bike lanes on Papoka Road all the way to Veterans Park. I drive here Saturday mornings. I see people, maybe not right now, but with the heat, but I have seen a lot of people using those functionality of that complete street. Addition, kind of that last bullet kind of describes the scope of what we'll be looking at. Curb and gutter repair, sidewalks, full depth reconstruction in some cases. In other cases, it might just be a rehab, base repair, rehabilitation. Sidewalks, and as always, drainage improvements. Oh,
There you go.
so kind of describes the different scopes of work that some of these projects did. East Aviation Boulevard, the full gamut of scope. You have drainage improvements. You didn't have any curbs out there, so we're able to add curbs and gutter to improve the facilitation of drainage. Sidewalks, as I mentioned, bike lanes, as well as operations. Athenian Boulevard, or Athenian Drive, more consistent with the type of street that we're going to see. Just the pavement's failed. The picture on the bottom, it's been rehabbed and reconstructed. Well, in that case, that was reconstruction. And last but not least, and as Coach will get into as we look at the types of projects, drainage is a huge component of why some of these streets are having issues. So being able to combine improvements on streets, Lindbergh Boulevard drainage issue, we're able to address that drainage issue with the improvements on East Aviation Boulevard. So it's a channel that took some of that water off of Lindbergh and introduced it into the channel headed over to the outfall on East Aviation. So flash forward to now, general overview of 2023 bond program. As Randy mentioned, this was a proposition that went before citizens and voters in November of 2022, and I'll read the proposition. The issuance of not to exceed $30 million in the principal amount of bonds for street improvements and the levying of a tax and payment thereof. So as shown there, the proposition passed with just under 70% voter approval. And so that would be for street and associated drainage improvements similar to what we did previously. ACR's task was to develop preliminary estimates and then assess the recommended streets to come up with packages, which we'll go into here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Coach.
Thank you, JM.
And I can drive this.
Awesome. Mayor Council. So I'll go over our selection process. We started out with 93 streets that were eligible for this consideration. They were selected mainly based on their pavement conditions, but also connectivity to other streets, as well as the best impact that we can make with the funding available to the citizens. The four main criteria we considered was pavement condition. As we know, with the heat, with the drought, and some flooding, the pavement takes a big hit in those situations. And the street connectivity, like I said, how essential are these streets for the overall functioning of the city in terms of delivery of goods and peoples. Concurrent project opportunities. There are sections of the city where there's multiple streets that are failing at a similar rate. And combining those projects together for both design and construction helps us save some cost on design and construction. I'll go into that a little bit more later. And also the number of affected parcels. This one I'll go into a little bit more later, but basically how many parcels are on that street and how much direct impact will it be to the businesses and residents. So pavement condition, we relied on the 2009 study that was done to assess the street conditions of every single street within the city. There's a little snippet at the bottom that you can't really see, but basically it gave a score and rating for the condition of that street. And we supplemented that by going out to all of the streets that are under consideration, the eligible streets, and did a field inspection and basically verified that the streets have not been rehabbed and that they are continuing to fail and that they are worse than when the 2009 report was published. So, can you go back? I'm sorry. And then, yes, there's different types of structural failures, like James hinted on a little bit, but there's pavement heaving, where you see uneven streets. There's significant cracking, which indicates water seepage to underneath the pavement, which will only worsen as time goes on. And poor drainage and ponding, which sometimes you can see debris or sediment collecting on the side of the street, so that's always a good sign that the street is failing and not draining properly. We also looked at opportunities to combine projects, like I said, for cost savings. If we're able to design the multiple streets at the same time, we can reduce the design time, which always results in cost savings there. And mobilization, instead of sending contractors out multiple times, just so you know, mobilization is about 10% of the overall construction cost. So if we're able to send them out once to multiple streets, that saves a significant amount of available funding. And also the overall duration of the construction connected to mobilization. We also looked at pre-existing capital improvement projects. If there's already a plan to redo drainage for a street, then the street, of course, will be restored, but it's an opportunity to go out there and improve the street if it was already in a poor or very poor condition. And we also looked at opportunities for drainage improvements. Drainage system is rarely just for one street, especially for resident streets. It's connected. So again, if we're impacting multiple streets for drainage improvements, that it makes sense to reconstruct a lot of the streets at the same time. And we also discussed with Randy and his team on upcoming developments that are known, so known future traffic generators such as apartment complexes and businesses are considered. Street connectivity, so when it comes to local residential streets, we looked at whether they provide access to collectors and arterials. Collectors for Universal City would be Kitty Hawk, Universal City, Westburg, Aviation. And whether they function as connections to more residential streets, meaning more so than just the sheer number of residences on the street. It provides access to more citizens and users, and access to commercial and civic activities such as businesses, emergency services, and parks, which we always want those streets to be in good condition in cases of emergency, and also to provide access to those high-use areas, and whether those streets can be used as alternate routes in case of nearby street closure and needs to be a detour. Number of affected parcels. So we calculated the cost per property owner by counting the number of houses and businesses within the project limits, the study limits. I've included here two extreme cases. One is East Lindbergh Boulevard, which is about $70,000 per property owner, whereas West Bird, which is longer and wider, is at $500,000 per property owner. But we know that West Bird Street is failing, and also that it provides access to major businesses and routes such as 1604 and Pet Booker. So I just wanted to throw that in there as a caveat that we're considering all things cohesively and holistically. So our methodology for cost estimate was we assumed full depth reconstruction for all these streets. Like I said, all these eligible streets were in poor or worse condition. So they are all candidates for reconstruction, which should involve removal of all of the existing pavement and new pavement of full depth, and we'll introduce concrete curbing gutter to allow for better drainage and protection of these street edges where they're prone to failure and ponding. We assumed a percentage for drainage engineering and survey improvements, and we included contingency with the current economic climate to account for future inflation and any material shortage issues that may prolong the project life cycle. And we used the most available text bid items to account for the local San Antonio area costs that's best available. So these are the recommended streets shown in red. I'll go into detail. There's a more detailed table in the next slides, but there were 25 streets out of 93. The total estimate is about $37 million, which is a little bit more than the bond amount, and I'll get into why in a little bit. So I'll just kind of let you look at this table in the next one a little bit. These are the selected streets and the associated estimates on the rightmost column. And this is the second set of streets. Okay, so with those streets selected, and we can go back to those slides later if needed, we looked at these things for packaging considerations. One is, of course, the pavement condition. There are ones that need immediate rehab or reconstruction to prevent failing. And also, we tried to combine similar projects of scope and type, again, for cost savings and efficiency purposes. And same with concurrent design and construction opportunities, again, the savings that I touched on earlier. And like Kim mentioned earlier, we looked at about $6 million groupings of the streets packages. So this is the recommended packaging. There are 6 total packages, 6 times 6. They are more or less $6 million. So there are a couple things I can point out here. For package 1, we have the first 6 streets are all in the same neighborhood, and they're of very small value and short lengths. So those make sense to group together. And then as you go, you can kind of see where we consider the existing conditions of the streets. We are leaving open the opportunity and possibility for these packages to be reconsidered as the projects go on. If there's cost savings that were not accounted for as part of our estimates, then we are able to introduce a push-up on the streets and bring in some of the eligible streets that were not selected as part of this exercise. If we are able to complete the whole bond program and still have funding available, then later packages in the streets included there in 5 and 6, for example, could be done as well. So that's all the presentations that we have prepared today. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, well, let's open it up for comments and questions. This is the first opportunity that the council has had to see the recommendation, see. So, there may be some questions related to it. So, Mr. Goolsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Y'all just kind of jumped in. I know who HDR is, but who is HDR and how are y'all qualified to make these decisions?
So, thank you for asking that. So HDR, we're an engineering firm, architectural engineering firm. We've been in the San Antonio area since we acquired Simpson Group. Simpson Group predated HDR. I think they started here in 1909, if I'm not mistaken. So we've been around a bit. HDR, we just celebrated our centennial in 2017, so we've been around for over 100 years. Myself, I'm a transportation engineer. I've been in the industry over 20 years. I worked at TxDOT, conditional grant student. Lived and worked here in San Antonio. Worked at TxDOT for 7 years. Did a lot of projects. I was in the office area office. So we did a lot of the stuff in Universal City as part of that. So I have a lot of history with Universal City. I used to live right down the road on 604. So very present with the community. Have a good pulse of the streets and such. So that's a little bit about me. I've been with HDR for 16 years. So yeah, just been in the industry a long time, and we've done this for other communities, City of Taylor, Universal City in the past. So from an experience standpoint, we've done this before.
Fantastic, thank you. When you busted the budget by like a 20% bust, is that in anticipation of you're using kind of a higher estimate just so that we come in under budget, and that's the hope, or no, it's going to be we got $6 million overage, and it is what it is.
So we are just accounting for the potential eventuality that maybe inflation is as bad as we're accounting for here. Like I said, right now we're assuming about 20 to 25% contingency, and as the future packages come to design and construction, we're accounting for more inflation for those later projects as well. But we also wanted to go ahead and select more than what is actually available funding-wise, so we can go ahead and identify those extra streets that still should be prioritized out of those 93 original eligible streets.
Fantastic. So as I'm looking at your typical design, is that y'all's recommendation as street engineers, or is that something Randy just pulled out and said this is how we do streets in Universal City, or did you use like a geotechnical understanding of what Universal City soils are, and this is what holds up Universal City soils?
Yeah, so I guess real quick before I answer that, can I add to his comment? So in the past bond programs, the streets that were done, we were able to do selected streets and had additive streets, and if bids came in at below the threshold of the budget, we were able to bring some of those streets up, and we would anticipate some of that, and the same methodology was used in those instances. Now, as far as the streets that were selected, we did start off with a list of the streets that were in the poor category from that report. And then from there, we expanded based on some of the things that we discussed. Now, those are just recommendations. Those are things that there's opportunity to pull some of those streets in. What we also were wanting to know or wanted to look at was streets that had a little bit larger budget from the standpoint of construction, just because you get there's a magnitude of based on the scope, you get a little bit more bang for your buck, if you will. Some of those other streets in that list, they're a little bit smaller, the cul-de-sacs. They may show up in the report as in poor category or poor pavement, but it might be something that Randy could handle with his yearly annual budgets. So this, what we wanted to focus on was something that is a little bit larger, provides either the condition of the streets are poor, or they're a little bit longer streets, and they affect more people.
Yeah, I guess kind of where I'm headed is the design that you based your budgets off of. It's basically, it was a singular tear it up, put down, we're gonna do lime stabilization, geogrid,
Yes.
all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and I could back up on that slide. So the assumption was that it was gonna be each street was gonna be fully reconstructed.
And basically where I'm headed is did we assume that every street's gonna, it's a level playing field? Every street has that same exact design and has those same issues underlying?
Yes,
So the design that you saw on the slide is actually what we used for our 2010 bond
That was
street
it.
program, which was designed with our geotechnical investigation and design. So we're assuming that same will apply here as we're working in the same city audits.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Can
Chairman.
you go back to the recommended packaging
Yes, sir.
slide?
And this guy is not.
There you go. Okay, good. So I think that's what very good for.
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Thank you, sir.
All right, let's continue on. Mr. Vaughan.
You mentioned 93 streets, right? Is that just the ones that you were trying to identify? Because tell me, how many do we have? Do we have like 150 or is 93 all of them?
So 93 were the list that we started off with, they performed very, very poor as of that report.
Okay, so those are all the poor streets on
Yeah,
there.
and they had very poor, so they were in a, so I don't want to just limit it to just poor, very poor. They were just overall in a not performing one.
And I'm assuming you didn't do a pavement study to roll
No.
forward to 2009, but do you have like a list that you guys are working from of where you kind of went and said, well, that one in 2009 was terrible and it's still terrible, or were we upgraded or downgraded based on the work that we did over the last?
So we don't have a new report, but the report, would move forward to now, and I mean, the report's over 10, 15 years old, so the condition of those streets have not improved. I mean, any street that has been replaced since they're approved since then, they will have better scores. But, we started off with the information that we had and took it from there.
So I think your question is, what was the methodology for selecting those eligible streets?
Well, I guess my question too is, are there other ones that you guys are kind of have excluded based on your expertise that maybe are on the cusp that we would want to consider? Like, well, maybe we should include those or not include those, or is there like a group of 15 that didn't make the cut?
There certainly were, but considering we're only working with $30 million, I shouldn't say only. But only for this project, right? So out of $30 million, we had a good understanding of overall length, I guess, of the program that we can provide. And it's really a selection or filtering process. We selected 93 based on their report that were in the worst condition. We went out there and surveyed them visually, and we selected the 25 out of those. So we had to start somewhere to start trimming that list down. And the 2009 report, where it studied every single street, was the one we selected.
Okay. What about the water and sewer infrastructure? Do we have that plan to coincide? Do we throw in extra money to get that at the same time, or?
Randy can answer that.
Yeah, water and sewer has been identified when we looked at these streets as the projects that would be proposed. There are water and sewer plans that we will address. Some of it's through the ARPA, some of it's through our utility CIP projects. But based on the schedule and what packages we follow, the plan will be to follow. If we need to upgrade these lines, we will do it before these street projects come in. And that's what we did with the last one as well.
And that's not in the 36 million, right?
No, the water and sewer is not, this is street and drainage, right?
Right, so they didn't factor into those in. Like, you didn't say, we need to do whatever street because there's a terrible sewer line underneath it and throw in an extra 200,000 because we're gonna have to do that on the street, or that wasn't contemplated at all?
No.
Okay. You also had a couple slides about potential new development coming and maybe trying to plan for that. Can we do that as part of the street bonds? I mean, this is a legal question, so feel free to punt, but are we limited to the existing infrastructure that we have, or can other infrastructure that's planned be included?
Yeah, I think just to clarify, go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, every street in our city is eligible for the bond. So,
Existing, right, or not?
I'd have to, any street, it's a street and drainage bond. So if we're building a new street, it should be eligible as well. And I'll get our bond counsel to verify that, but I'm pretty sure any existing and new, you can build our roads with.
But are you proposing any new streets?
There is no new streets at this time. Everything's based on the existing streets we have right now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and just a point of clarification, those that are on the number one package, I would assume probably when we had that $20 million some years ago, these streets were identified, but they never made muster because they were not part of the overall package.
Correct. I mean, it's a hard choice, right? We got 93 projects on here. I would love to do them all, but we don't have the money to do it. So it's a hard choice. You got to narrow that pie down. And so, but yes, we identified the worst ones then, and now this is the next ones that they identified moving forward.
Just want to make sure you put that in. Very good. Okay. Ms. Patrick.
Thank you. I just had a couple questions, and one's just, I'm going to beat a dead horse here. So you only went out and did a field study on the 93 streets. You didn't just, go and do any other ones, just make sure that they hadn't catastrophically failed more than, okay. We keep mentioning that we're starting from the standpoint of a 2009 study, and I understand that we're still making headway on that list. Do you have any insight into how frequently communities redo those studies? I mean, I feel like, I know the last one we had in place for something like over 40 years or something, so I just want to make sure that we're in the wheelhouse of still dealing with a study that's this old. I mean, clearly we're still making progress on it, but I'd just like to have your input onto if that's kind of a normal status.
So 2 things were shown in that study. One was an IRI, which is a roughness index. That doesn't necessarily mean the street's failing, but it's rough, right? And the other one is the pavement condition. What is the condition of the pavement? And that's where you get into some of the streets that we're able to rehab with some repair as opposed to a full reconstruction. I guess to answer that, the life, when we do pavement design, so we'll do a geotech study, which will determine identify the types of soils that are there. And then based on that, there'll be a pavement design for life of the pavement. Typically the pavement life is about 10 years for asphalt, and with rehab, maybe a mill and overlay at the 5-year mark. So there is some rehabilitation. Just because you build something or design something for 10, 15 years doesn't mean it's going to last that long. There's going to be rehab associated with that. So using, I guess, that logic and applying it to redoing a report, I would say every 10, 15 years might be warranted. But not all streets are built at the same time. They're all not rehab at the same time. So you want to give enough time to warrant a restudy of the streets.
Is it in your recommendation? I mean, we still have 93 that were very poor back then. Is there a need to redo the study now, considering we still have such a big pool of streets that need reconditioning?
I mean, you look at 2010, right? And so that's when the first streets rolled out. So now we're, 13 years removed from that. You might be at a cusp where it might make sense to start looking at that.
Okay.
That being said, there was a lot of streets that weren't done. I don't remember the number, maybe Randy could remember the number of streets that were done in the 2010 bond. I mean, it's still, I think it was less than 25. There was also done. About 30. So we're
They were
about
much shorter.
Yeah.
We had some cul-de-sacs, little offshoots of it.
Yeah. And keep in mind, as part of that 2010 money, Kitty Hawk Road was a larger project that ate out of that 20 million, as was East Aviation. Now, with that said, the city was able to leverage their local money with the federal money for Texas.
Right.
For those. So.
And I was assuming that that's part of why you added in the 6 million too, in addition for maybe hoping at inflation, but also in the ability that we were able to get some grants or some other money that we might be able to get through more.
Yeah, and I want to let you know, based on the new study, it was put in this upcoming budget. As you know, we had to cut the budget, right? So it was put in there for this year, this 2024, for a new study. Based on, because we've done quite a few streets that they've already shown you, that would now be included, updated, because we've done repavement and all that. But that was one of the cuts. To do a pavement study like this will take 2 budget years to do, based on the cost. So, but it is programmed. If we don't get it in this next year, I will reapply it for fiscal year 2025.
Excellent, thank you. You put them in $6 million packages. Is that just, I'm assuming it's grouped like that just because that's kind of a realistic thing that we can look at for a period of time, a time period that we would be working on those streets?
Yeah, so we basically, we have a term that we have to spend this time. So typically you want to spend that 30 million within Ms. Turner can probably answer it better than I can, but probably within the first 15, between the first 15 years. So we're trying to package it in 6 million increments, knowing that it's 36 million that you're looking at there. In the past budgets, we've had it where it was 20 million, but we were able to probably, when we put all the projects out, probably added, and I'm just paraphrasing here, probably 50 million, we were able to add some more additional streets. So this way here, we can always switch on priorities. None of these packages have a year tied to it. So we're not going to tell you that we're going to do this one this year and this one that year. Because our parties, as we move forward and as council change over, they may change. So right now, my recommendation would be package 1 in this first year. But after that, if we go out again 3 years from now to issue the next 6 million, on these packages, you may, as council, may say, this project, we want this one, this package to go forward. So it's really your choice tonight on these packages, on what order. But as you know, it's going to be probably, once we do all these packages, in $6 million increments, and maybe, of course, between 12 and 15 years.
There's a reason we do street bonds every 3 years for 2 things. One is there is a capacity of how much construction one city can take. We all know that based on what happened on 1604 and Kitty Hawk, and even just as simple.
Ms. Turner, I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you. Could I ask you to speak up just a little bit?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Buck. I apologize. So there's a couple of reasons why we do streets in 3-year increments. One is the capacity for people to take construction within a city, because once we issue the bonds, there's a long period of time where engineering work is done and construction doesn't happen. And so we need the time for all of those streets to be in the chute and under construction before we start considering the next. And not only that capacity, but you have to remember that we're always looking at what is our INS rate going to be in terms of our overall tax rate. And we want to make sure that we are not continually raising that by having the bond packages too close together. So that's the other thing, and Victor will talk about that when he gets up here.
Thank you.
So we're good? So what you're looking for from council this evening is basically a go-ahead on that package number 1.
That's what you want.
Rather than look at the, well, my suggestion to everybody in council is, now we have a first look at this, package number 1 is identified as the most critical needs of the very poor and very poor. The others are potential packages, but we will have the ability to look at those additional packages as we go on. So we're looking probably at this first package, which would take maybe, what, 5 years, 6 years?
For design and construction?
Yeah.
No.
Maybe not that long.
No.
So design for something like that, I would say 6 months.
Okay, what about actual work?
Work, I get a package, the 2017, maybe around 8 to 12 months.
Okay, so a little over a year and a half.
Now, back to how these were grouped, those first 6, they're in the very close proximity to each other, so that allows some efficiency on time.
Okay.
So that's just something to consider there.
Can you go back to the map? Because not everybody knows where all the streets are. I think you have to go back 1, maybe 2. Randy, can you stand up and show them where the streets are on the map?
All right, so basically the area is right here, this neighborhood. For mobilization, when you have a contractor with it all being there, it's going to save us a whole lot of money by doing that. And then the other one was Persia. This is the one that we have in design right now to finish out the drainage system that half of the street was done back in 99, 2000. So we're going to do the other half by that. The pavement section is terrible on that street, so that one will be reconstructed. And then the other one was Travis, which basically drains, surface drains this whole area, in this area here, and discharges in the railroad right away right there. So that one is one of our other priorities as well. I don't know if I'm missing. is that?
No, and I think just that
Commerce
group
Road, this one right here.
Yes.
Is the other one that was found with that.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, with that neighborhood there, we don't wanna just pick one street there, you wanna group them all together. And they're smaller as far as size and budget for those streets. It just makes sense to do it.
Okay, so there's, yes, Paul.
Yeah, just one question to clarify. When we were talking about the timing of all the packages, as far as the time it would take to basically complete that full package. Excuse me. At first I was thinking that these packages, not only based on 6 million, but based on each package being able to be done within a year, 2 years, or are they all different as far as
Design duration?
Are they all different in the amount of time it would take to finish that particular package?
I think they're pretty consistent.
In general,
Yeah.
we're talking about the same, I guess, amount of CIP. So the duration for both design and construction is about the same across the package.
Okay, thank you.
So we have, go back to the recommended packaging again, please. Okay, so this is your look at it and staff's look at it the same. This is for the $30 million we're looking at it now, 36. This is our recommendation, is where we suggest that we go from here. Start with package number 1, then take, and when it comes down the road for package number 2, council will have a chance to look at that again and say, well, there's some changes. There's some changes potentially. But are you looking for us to say conceptually, let's look at all 6 packages and have council say, you know, we're in agreement with these packages, or my suggestion is we take a look at least just package number 1 for sure, because we'll know the package 2 is going to come back to us at another day. You agree, Randy?
I would agree, you know, consensus that y'all are good with us moving forward with package 1 for this fiscal, you know, that we're going out for the issuance. Also, we like the recommendation of that.
Okay. Anyway, yes, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Randy, before you sit down, can you, I'm just trying to understand the logic, and I know you've got it figured out, I'm just trying to get it, I'm going to ask you to bear with me because I'm having a hard time. When I see the package and I see that we're throwing Persia and Travis into package 1, but then, so as a follow package 2, that cuts a lot right through Lindbergh, but Lindbergh doesn't show up until package 5. I'm just asking for a little help on, is it because you, like you said, you didn't want to totally inundate an area at once that's heavily trafficked, and these, you know, but we're doing that in package 1 over in over there, we're inundating that area all at once. Is that because it's not a lot of heavy commercial traffic, and so I'm just trying to understand that logic. That's
You're saying in package 5?
Yeah, because like package 5 has Lindbergh, but package 2 has aviation and Wright, and
So we got, on package 2, you got a couple of the west side, right? So you're not going to start construction, and the west right is just one block. That's where we got some vacant parcels and we got some development, and the road is basically down to 1 lane practically over there. So the construction will not affect that much in that one area. Tumblebrook is across 1604, but Crockett and Bowie is in that general area over there. So when you come, we're going to have 4 projects within mobilization that he has all his equipment on that side of town. He has to mobilize his equipment one time to take it on the other side of 1604. So that's one thing with that one. On package 5, as you start knocking some of these projects out and you got these left, you got Oak Meadows that's on that side, East Lindbergh that's in the old section, but then you got the DeSoto that's in Coronado. That one gets a little bit spread out a little bit more, but it's one of those things that when you start moving these streets around, you start getting over 6 million pretty quick. So you have to, it doesn't always land in the package that you want it to land into, unless you can match up those numbers that get you to that $6 million mark.
yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, if you didn't take DeSoto and flip it with Oak No, because like Phoenix and Oak Meadows, I feel like since they're right there, shouldn't they be in the same package?
And yes, we can, I mean, those, we prioritize Oak Meadows over Phoenix. That's why you see those that are in that year 6, because year 6 is outside the 30 million. So those can wait if we weren't able to get there. But if you feel it's more important, then we can always do that.
See, there's a method to your madness.
Yeah.
Thank you. That makes sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I think what we're looking at is we need a motion, obviously, from council. And if my suggestion to us is that we take a look at just approving where we are at package number 1 right now of the overall $30 million, $36 million presentation, because we'll have a chance to look at those others as they come up. So, I mean, this is up to council, this is your call.
I move we postpone our decision until the next meeting so that we can review this, since we haven't seen this until just now, so.
I second that.
All right, there's a motion to postpone the decision tonight and to take a look at it longer, so I will go ahead and continue the discussion on that, yes.
Yeah, I don't have any problem postponing it as long as this doesn't put us into this doesn't affect you in any real way, right? You don't have anything coming up that 2 weeks is going to kill you on?
No, it's turn.
Well, the thing that you have to remember is on your next presentation, you're going to have your issuance of your $6 million. So if you approve that tonight, then you very quickly need to figure out which streets you're going to do so that we can make sure that we have sufficient bond coverage for your projects.
But can
Yes, ma'am.
it wait, like, can we approve, I'm fine with approving the bonds, because obviously you want your money and you have a plan for it, but I would like a little bit more time to go over the streets, so can we just wait, can we approve the bonds tonight, but then the very next meeting in August, then go over the streets and make sure
Yes.
then we're all good on the streets and everything, and
Yes.
since we just got this, but is that 2 weeks gonna do anything, if we issue the bonds, because I'm okay with issuing the bonds, I just would like to go over the streets a little bit and have a little bit more time to look at these packages since we just got them tonight.
There's no issue with that.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so we do have a motion and a second to postpone this discussion on the packages until our next council meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in
Well, 1 August.
August. Okay, all right, that's the motion before us in a second. There's no other discussion, let me call for that vote, please.
So to clarify, it's the first motion, or the motion is to approve the bonds, postpone the streets.
The bond approval will have to be on the next.
Postpone until August 1st meeting, the bond package decisions.
Okay. Councilmember Vaughan,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby, Councilmember Buck, Councilmember Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck, did you hear that, the motion and the second, and the vote is taking place now? I think we lost him. Okay, but the motion does pass then, 5-0. Okay,
Thank you.
very good. All right, let's press on. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, no problem.
I think this is the first time council's had a chance to look at any of the streets. And not that we don't agree with your recommendations, it'll give us a better commentary. Okay, so let's press on then to tab number D, consideration and approval of a financing plan for the issuance of general obligation bonds, series 2023.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Following on with this discussion, we have Victor P. Roby here, as you know. You can stand here. I'm just going to let Victor know, since he came in late, for some reason our speaker system is not working at full capacity, so you will have to speak very loud, so everybody behind you can hear, as well as Mr. Buck, who is on Zoom.
Mr. Buck, you back with us?
Do you have his presentation up?
He can't hear that. Okay, very good, please. It's you.
I think we're getting the presentation up, but yeah, it's no problem with being loud and everything. But thank you for having me here, Honorable Mayor, members of the Council, Ms. Turner. For the record, my name is Victor Quiroga with Specialized Public Finance, and we have the honor of representing the city as your bond financial advisors. Also with me is Cole Gilmore out of our Austin office. What we're going to show you tonight is really just a summary behind this as we move and forward and issuing bonds. There's a bunch of offering documents that needed to be prepared, various tax impact analysis and credit analysis done. And Cole is very instrumental in that. In fact, he's probably the brains behind this operation, so he's here with us as well. So first, I've not been here in a little while, so I want to congratulate the city for a successful street bond program that was passed back in November. Also, don't recognize a couple faces, so I want to congratulate the new council members that just came on as well. So we're here this evening to present to you a financing plan. We're not actually issuing debt just yet. We're not locking in interest rates just yet. We're just here before you to get your permission to allow myself and the administration to start moving forward on the bond package and the bond issuance. Right now we're looking at about a $6 million bond authorization to be sold this year before the end of your fiscal year. So with that said, we have a brief presentation for you.
I can do the remotely.
Thank you. Great. So the first page after the cover sheet, this might be a little bit small. Hopefully you have a package in front of you as well. But this is the bond issuances that are currently outstanding for the city. And these are the bonds that have the collateral or security mechanism by the bondholders of what we call your general obligation. These are your bonds that are backed by property taxes, but that's not to say that the city, for all of these issuances, utilizes the property taxes to repay the annual principal and interest payments on each of these bonds. For instance, the certificates of obligation series 2015 and 17 were issued using your property tax as a security mechanism, but in fact, on an annual basis, the utility system revenues that are being derived from that enterprise are being used to repay those particular debt issuances. And so those proceeds went for the utility system, and so you're not using property tax with that. So I just want to point that out. Not all these obligations are being paid by your property taxes. But currently, the principal outstanding, not counting what we intend to issue in the near future, is $18.9 million in principal. The other information here, final maturity, that's just our fancy way of saying we're never going to pay off each individual debt issuances, and then the call date is when we have the opportunity to refinance those bonds without any type of penalty. And on the bottom left side there, you can see the annual principal and interest payments for these obligations that are outstanding. The green is your principal, and the gray is the interest that you pay. On the right side is the callable bonds and when those are due and how much in principal that is due. So if you go to the next slide, please. So before we go into the bond market, one of the processes that we've done and have to do before we could approach bond investors is we go through a credit analysis. So each time we issue bonds, we engage with an independent rating agency. In our case, of the three, we utilize a firm called Standard & Poor's or S&P. And so their role as an independent party is to assess and look at everything here at the city. And so they come up with an analysis, and then they come up with a rating for the city. And that's vital whenever you issue bonds, because a bond investor that may not live here in South Texas or in Texas in general, they want to know what this independent party says about the city, Universal City. And so when they go through this analysis, they look at really two things. They look at things you can control as a city, how conservatively you're budgeting, how you're controlling your expenses on an annual basis. And then they also look at things you can't really control. You don't control the property values that are set on the homes or the businesses. You don't control, how frequently they pay or who's coming into the city and who's moving into the city. So currently the city is in a wonderful financial position in that for a city our size, we're considered a very highly rated bond issuer. Currently, Standard & Poor's has us rated as a AA+. And so what does that mean? If you go to the next slide, this is the chart or the rating scale that Standard & Poor's utilizes. And so basically, the higher you are on this credit rating scale, the more easy it is for the city to access the bond market, go into the bond market, and more importantly, get you the best interest rate possible. So ratings are important. Again, the higher the credit rating, the lower the interest rates you're going to set, the lower property taxes you're going to have to collect for your bond issuance. And so right now we're one notch below the AAA rating. Going over to the next slide, just visiting a little bit about the bond package that was approved on November 8, 2022. At that time, you asked your voters to allow you to issue up to $30 million on their behalf to address streets within the city limits. And so that bond election, as you know, passed by a 70% approval rate. When we packaged this, and we were last year in August, when you called the election, we knew, as Ms. Turner indicated, that we really can't issue all $30 million over time. We're going to do what we did in 2010, where we did it over time, because as Ms. Turner indicated, you can't spend all that money all at once. And so when we did that, we took into account that, well, we're going to issue this in increments, likely about every 3 years, where we would come back and issue about $6 million increments to cover the $30 million bond package over time. Not only did we do this because we can't spend $30 million all at once, but we wanted to make sure that we manage the INS tax rate appropriately, so you're not increasing the tax rate all at once in a significant manner to your taxpayers, and just to make it affordable. We did indicate that the package would increase the INS tax rate anywhere from 11.16 cents, where it currently is right now, all the way up to 12.34. It's very hard to say where we're going to land on that. We're using pretty conservative estimates with respect to property values, which is a big driver as to what tax rate you're going to set to repay your debt. But most importantly, the homeowners that have the over 65 homestead exemption will not be impacted by the increase if you do end up increasing the INS tax rate over time. And so regarding this year's proposed bond sale, we're looking to issue $6 million in general obligation bonds under this voting package. After this issuance, you will have $24 million in bond authorization, what we call authorized but unissued. We anticipate and recommend using a competitive sale method as we've done in the past. That's been a wonderful, transparent sale method that we've done, where we basically put this out to bid. Whoever gives us the lowest interest rate will be awarded those bonds. And again, this is a credit to the fact that you have such a high credit rating, that this is a method and an option available to the city, universal city, to reduce your borrowing costs. We anticipate going into the bond market, assuming your approval this evening, on September 19th. At that morning, we'll go into the bond market, get an interest rate, lock it in. I'll come back that evening, present to you the bid tabulations for the $6 million. Subject to your approval at that evening, you would approve it, likely accept the lowest interest rate bidder, and then we would set up closing where the city would receive the monies into your bank account on October 18th. No further meeting is required after September 19th. Going over to the next slide here, we're looking at $6 million, as I indicated earlier. Currently, this is what we call a level repayment structure. This is a very traditional, this is probably the most, aside from not issued yet, the most conservative repayment structure that government entities utilize. What we mean by level is, you can see on the right side, the principal and interest payments per year are level. So each year you are going to pay, here just the conservative estimate is about $480,000 per year. I'm being very conservative because a lot could happen between now and 2 months from now when we actually lock in the interest rate. So on purpose, I'm using a conservative interest rate of 5%. If we were to be selling these bonds today, we'd probably be in the 4.2, 4.3% interest rate based off of your credit rating and market conditions. So I'm hoping that when I come back to you in September, it won't be 5%. Hopefully it'll be lower, but I can't promise you that. Based off of this debt structure that's currently laid out, we do not anticipate an increase in your interest and sinking fund tax rate going into next year. Your property values on a preliminary basis are looking to be growing, and so we don't anticipate an increase in your INS tax rate currently. The next page is the term sheet. This is basically a summary of how the bonds will be structured. Much like your other bonds, we'll be making semi-annual interest payments and annual principal payments. If you issue this debt in September, the first payments will occur on February 15th, and interest payments. Then in August 15th of next year, principal payments will kick in, and then this will be over a 20-year period for repayment. Again, we'll be making an application to Standard & Poor's based off of the city's current financial conditions. We're hoping that there's no change in your strong credit rating of AA+, that the city currently has. The last page here, ladies and gentlemen, is the just a little bit of a perspective with respect to interest rates. I know the news, lately in the past year, interest rates have been going up, particularly those short-term interest rates. What we're looking at here, a 20-year bond is considered more of a long-term interest rate. Those have been going up as well, but not as much as what we hear in the news with the Federal Reserve and everything. And so I just wanted to show this to you because, yes, we've been in a rising interest rate environment, but when you put in perspective, going back to 1961, overall, we're still in a very good situation where we're able to issue long-term bonds, and we're hoping to be in a sub 5% interest rate range when I come back to you next September 19th. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, we're not locking in any interest rates yet. All we're asking is for approval to move forward with the bond offering documents. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Let me entertain a motion first to approve the financing plan, and then we'll go on for discussion.
Move to approve.
Second. Second by Councilmember Najarian. All right, discussion. Anybody have questions of Victor or staff? Phil?
Okay, so I'm the numbers guy, so I'm going to HR.
Yes.
So just to state the obvious, just so everybody knows, but if we keep the INS rate the same, and if everybody's values have gone up 10% on average, which is about average, then they'll be paying 10% more on the INS tax levy, right? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the principal side of the debt, we can choose any principal maturity schedule we want, right? You presented a level term, which means $480,000 over the next 20 years is what we would pay. But we could choose to say this year we're going to reduce the principal, we're going to pay the principal, and this year or not that year, right? Can you go back to your slide 2? And so it's real small, we don't have any numbers, but it's just a chart. And that one on the bottom left shows what our future debt service is and includes the new $6 million in bonds. And you can see these first 3 years, we've got a hump that we've got to get over, and then it drops, a pretty good drop for the next 4 years, and then it just falls off from there. So in my mind, we have an opportunity to delay some of the principal for the first 3 years to where we don't have as large of an increase this year and allow some of the new properties that we're anticipating to come in to help share the load of those costs going forward. What are your thoughts about that?
No, that's definitely an option. As a municipal bond issuer, you do have an option of massaging the repayment schedule to your liking to suit your needs. I'm pretty conservative, you know. I like the level repayment structure. When we look at the INS tax rate, you're correct in that property values have been going up, but our models, when we developed this, assumed that property values would go up. Our focus was entirely on the tax rate that's set. I would, I guess, be maybe cautious about delaying principal for a couple of reasons. The first reason is when we developed this long-term financing plan for the $30 million, we were able to achieve a level, essentially almost a level INS tax rate over that time based on modest property value growth, while only using a very conservative repayment structure being the level repayment structure where on the very first year, we're going to go ahead and start paying principal off on this debt and not delay it. So number one, the long-term plan that we developed and presented to voters was using structures like the level debt service. The second reason why at this point I'm not recommending delaying principal just yet, although it's the will of the council to do so, is that the AA+ credit rating that we have for a city our size is extremely strong. And it's for two primary reasons that Standard & Poor's continues to indicate why that is. Number one, you have a very strong fund balance, and so they like to see that. That's like the number one criteria that they like. Number two is that when you look at your repayment structure, particularly for the debt that you're using your interest and sinking fund tax levy to pay, that is considered, that all the bonds that we structured in the past have been using a level repayment structure, and sometimes we've even accelerated the repayment of the principal up top and not delayed it. So right now, one of the strong points about the city is that the debt that you currently have right now, the first 10 years from now, the debt that you currently have, about 70% of that principal payment will be paid off as currently structured right now. Standard & Poor's likes that, and they've actually even cited that in the last rating report when we sold bonds for you in 2022, that this is what we call a rapid amortization schedule. They like to see the fact that Universal City is pretty conservative. They pay principal as soon as you can and still manage your tax rate appropriately. And so my concern is that if we start delaying programs on the initial bonds for this 30-year long-term program, it's not going to leave much wiggle room for future bond issuances. We know that based on the packages you've seen that you're likely going to come back in about 3 years to issue another $6 million. So that drop off that you see here on this chart, the model that we built when we approached the voters, we basically assumed that that drop was going to be there. We'd be able to continue your bond issuance program without impacting the current INS tax rate. My concern is that if we do start delaying principal, number one, it's going to delay all of our principal for the bond issuances moving forward, and Standard & Poor's won't like that. I'm not saying they're going to downgrade us if we do it this time or anything. And number two, we're kind of banking on having those gaps in our future debt structure. The debt structure that's shown right there, that's a good thing, and it's because of the conservative decisions that previous councils and previous administrations made in keeping your level repayment structure like that and trying to pay off principal as rapidly as you can. And so, if we're kind of in year 12 already, and we're already in the last $6 million tranche of this $30 million bond program 12 years from now, and we're kind of in a situation like that, and we knew maybe we didn't need additional bond elections at that time, at that point, we might look and consider maybe delaying principal and having a purposefully delayed structure like that. At this point, I'm just, like I said, I'm pretty conservative. I like the fact that we have a future gap to fill in so that you could continue your future bond program, the $6 million. And again, my goal is to try to manage that tax rate as much as possible and not have to increase in the future. Sorry, that's very long-winded, but I just try to, the city's rated highly for a reason, and the way you structured your bonds in the past, that's one of the reasons of many that Standard & Poor's has cited.
Bigger.
Mr. Adjournment. Thank you. Good to see you again, Victor.
Likewise.
And I know I ask this question every time I see you. I
have the same answer probably.
And I'm anticipating that. But for the rest of the people, when these things come up, and our high grade of AA plus is extremely high, can you explain to us why it would be hard for us to get a AAA rating?
Like I indicated earlier, Standard & Poor's rates you on what you can control and can't control. What you can't control, the city has been doing a wonderful job. The council has been making wonderful decisions. The administration has been making great recommendations. And so everything that you can't control with respect to conservative budgeting, expenditure controls, the city is doing a wonderful job, and that's evident, not just me saying it, but Standard & Poor's each year reflecting that in their credit analysis of the city. The other things, that we can't control are, is there more room for growth, or are we looking at big industrial concerns coming in? San Antonio, they're rated AAA, but that's a bigger magnitude. The folks that are rated AAA are property values are strong. They're in excess of $1 billion, but it's those things. We have to be in excess of probably $2 billion, but even then, it's not a guarantee you're going to get a AAA rating. So some of it is, I guess, what I would call a bias from the credit analyst based off of what we have to work with and what our boundaries are as a city.
So as we brought it before, it's not, it wouldn't be impossible for us to get a AAA rating, but because of the size of our community and because of the fact that we're landlocked and they see that, you know, the expansion is not able to be there in the future, that probably would not happen. Right.
Yeah, but we're always pushing, you know,
Yeah.
when we talk to the analysts, we try to, you know, show them all the positive things going on in the city, but there's always that push, but
For a city
hard.
for a city our size, and when we do a AA plus rating is extremely big and hard to get, and a lot of people would boast that. If our rating for some reason had to drop down because of anything that comes up in the future, and their employees thinks that we've made some bad decisions, it drops down. It's a speculation question, probably hard for you to answer, but how long does that take, or how long a process if that drops down to get back up?
Well, it depends on kind of the severity of whatever actions the city, future councils might take. You know, if you dropped your fund balance like extremely low, all in one fell swoop, and you were using it for recurring expenses, not one-time capital expenses, at that time it'd probably be pretty quick that they drop you or downgrade your rating. But most of the time, if a city's having issues, the Standard & Poor's will kind of let you know. They'll put you first on a watch, maybe a negative watch. They won't decrease you just yet or downgrade you just yet, but they'll attach an outlook, is what we call it, maybe a negative outlook, telling the bond investors that, you know, we have some concerns here that we're looking at. We're going to give them some time to see if they sort it out. If not, there's a likelihood that we'll downgrade the city in the future.
Which makes it hard to get those type of interest rates that we.
It's all, and again, it all goes back to the higher the credit rating, the lower the interest rate you get, and the better you can manage your debt service and tax rate structure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We'll come back to another meeting, I'll probably ask the same.
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you.
We do have a motion to second. Is there any other discussion there?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Buck.
I apologize, sir. Circumstances beyond my control. I am now at the place where I wanted to be logged in for a city council meeting. I heard 90% of the previous discussion from about the street packages and stuff like that. And just before you were going to call for the vote is when I lost cell phone service. We were on our way somewhere. Is it too late for me to put my vote in for delaying and doing it in 2 weeks?
Okay, the vote was 5-0 to postpone the final discussion on the streets and discuss them at our next meeting.
Okay,
yes,
and
you
now
may
we're on
weigh in
the
with your
issuance
vote.
of the $6 million that would be to finance those street packages that we are going to discuss in 2 weeks.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, very well, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. I'm glad you're back with us. Okay.
Sorry for the delay. It's not going to require hospitalization or anything like that, but had a little bit of a scare there for a while.
Okay, well, I'm glad everything's okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Let's go ahead and call for the vote then, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
I guess.
You're a wizard, so.
Their progress usually snow for me, but thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. All right. That vote passes. Okay, let's move on.
Thank you all. We'll get to work as the court sees it happen.
Okay, next item is item number E, discuss and to consider the purchase/finance of fire trucks.
Thank you, Mayor. We've been talking about this for some time, and as you see, we do have a lot of fire personnel here and there here this evening. Obviously, this is their livelihood, so they're very interested in their vehicles. I also might want to add, while we're getting all of our speakers ready, that these are the crews that actually go out and spec out the trucks to determine the type of equipment that is needed for our city and all of the aspects that the truck needs to have. So that's part of the other reason why they're here. So, are y'all ready? Y'all know Chief Perna, he's going to introduce himself, and then obviously talk about the project, and then talk about the vehicles, and then answer questions that you might have, and then we can get down to the dollars and cents of it all.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having us tonight.
Speak up.
Obviously, we have talked a lot about fire trucks over the past several years. We've been preparing because we follow the NFPA standards, which says once these apparatus reach a certain age, we need to start thinking about placing them out of service or moving them to a backup service. So what happens is we have been faced with something we're not used to, that we're 3 and 4 year delay on apparatus. So this is playing in a big factor of why we're here tonight, trying to speed up this process. So obviously the guys that are here tonight, we assembled a committee. Basically that committee has been working for the last 8 months. Is that right, Jordan? About 8 months, is he? So they've been working with Jordan for about 8 months, speccing the truck that's going to be the best fit for our community. So we have got down to the end of it, and we are at the point now where we're looking at another price increase. So we were really pushing to try to lock in on a contract. We know we have to buy apparatus. We know we have to replace these trucks. Yet we're 3 and 4 years out on it. So the price is continually going up. I think at the last one, after the July 28th, we're looking at about a 7%.
Yes, sir. We're total. We're looking at 7-8% a year. We actually broke that down quarterly. So July 28th, we'll be having a 1.75% increase on that, and then we've kind of broke it down on this proposal letter as far as pricing for you.
So initially, I didn't know how council wanted to address this. So we had him figure out 2 ways. One of that with being 50% down, and the other with being nothing down. Nothing down, and so if we decided to go with nothing down, we have that 3 or 4 years to come up with that money. So if we put some down, we budgeted through those next 2-3 years, we have to make that final payment at time of purchase. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to pay cash for those apparatus as well. We could do financing as well. But
hey, Chief Berna, can I ask you to speak just a little bit louder, please? I apologize, you guys.
I'm sorry. I'm a quiet talker. I'm not like Johnny jumping around. So anyways.
And you're a lot slower than Johnny as well.
That's right. So after all the specs were done and the guys came to us, we were at 1.459 on the engine, and we were at 1.974 on the ladder truck.
And that's with $250,000 on each apparatus and loose equipment.
So we did.
These trucks will be built out with the equipment coming with them.
We didn't want to nickel and dime this where we have to send it to upfitting, get it upfitted, get the equipment put on it. So by adding that $250,000 loose equipment into each quote, these trucks are going to go be upfitted, put the equipment on them. They kind of come to us, we place the radio in them, and we're really in service. So it's a great deal. I know y'all had some questions for me as well. So we've kind of got
People
to.
that have a question, so you want to ask them?
Well, I'm waiting for the
Okay.
Go ahead. Are you finished with your?
One more quick thing. So we have talked about, like I said, we have talked about this several years and getting to this point. Us following that NFPA standard, our plan is to take the primary apparatus that's in place now, that'll move to the backup apparatus, and then obviously that's going to open up that there is some money on the front end that we can get from that older apparatus that we're replacing. So the current apparatus that we're in now is our Bravo. Sorry, I'm just dropped my notes. So 2017 is our current primary apparatus. Our backup apparatus is a 2006, and our ladder truck is a 2008. Currently, right now, our 2008 ladder truck has been out of service. It's at the shop, and our rescue truck's at the shop. So we have to be faced with making sure that our city's ready and available to respond to those calls. One of these is that we move that, the ladder truck, obviously we have to get it fixed. If we're looking at 3 to 4 years, when you tell me originally we were looking at 40 months on ladder and 50 months on the engine?
Yes, so currently the pumper, the engine is 49 to 52 months, which is a lane 3 pumper, so it's very high option content. We can kind of talk through some of that. And then the ladder is 42 to 45 months. So as it stands today, you'd receive the ladder truck before the pumper, and that's due to a lot of different things, different factors out there. One, backlog of orders, and that's kind of what everybody's dealing with as far as manufacturers. Two, there's new EPA guidelines coming out for 2027, so it's kind of changing some of the components that we put into these fire trucks as far as engines. They're now requiring a second alternator just to run the emission system. So there's a lot of factors that play into this. But I have to applaud the men and women of the fire department. When we were building these apparatus, they were thinking for the future of the city and what those needs might be, which I've been told several apartment complexes coming in. So with this ladder truck, a couple different things that we did, especially being so close to the base. It's now a single axle compared to your tandem axle that you have next door. So one simple example of savings is tires alone, right? When these guys back the truck up into the bay, that front axle actually drags, and so you're constantly having to buy new tires quicker. This apparatus is a single axle, so a little bit lighter, a little bit more maneuverable. It can run as a pumper. It's got 500 gallons of water on it. So if, with these two trucks, if we had to go in for a PM for maintenance, we can send the pumper there and they can still operate out of the ladder truck. So it kind of makes the department a little more maneuverable in that fact.
The total square footage or the feet, we're looking at 5 feet, 6 feet difference from what we're actually running with the engine.
So yeah, what you have currently is a 100-foot platform. What this one is a single axle, 107-foot stick.
Jordan, could you introduce yourself and tell them what company you're with?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. My name is Jordan Johnson, Mayor, Council. I'm with Sims Martin Emergency Group. I have Greg Tatch with me. He is the Director of Sales, and I'm just a sales representative. I'm also a firefighter up in New Braunfels. I'm a local kid. I'm from Universal City. My parents still live here. My in-laws live here. So I know UC very, very well. So getting to come back and kind of work with these guys is kind of cool. So kind of makes me feel like a little piece of the city.
One of the things we factored in is we looked at several different apparatus. Before we assembled the committee, we asked them to reach out because we know Pearson is not the only fire truck maker in the state. So what we did is we had them look at all of them. And the last truck we bought, we ended up buying something. It was, at the time, had a dealership here. We could get it serviced. Well, they up and moved to Florida, and we no longer had service there. So we have fought this all the way through these last few years, and it's gotten tougher and tougher because as these trucks age, they can make more mechanical problems. So that was a big deciding factor in the committee deciding to use Sims Martin. Sims Martin has been here for several years. They're selling fire trucks to all of our neighbors. Their service is unbelievable. I can say that these guys are standing right here. That was a big factor in deciding to go with Sims Martin, is the fact that we do have service. We actually have 2 service centers right here in San Antonio. So that was a huge factor. So yeah, I can answer any questions.
Okay, let's have some questions and then we'll go ahead and
Mr. Mayor, I have a few questions, sir.
all right, let's start with you, Mr. Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. And Chief Department, again, thanks for being here. Glad to have you with us. I understand that if we were to make the 50% down payment now at the time of ordering, they would give us a discount. And then if we ordered 2 trucks and made a 50% discount, or made a 50% down payment, the discount would be even better, correct?
So essentially,
Over that. That's a great question.
Sorry, one at a time, please.
That's a great question, and we're going to go over that. So we have here's a good example. The pumper truck that's at 1.5. With the multi-truck discount, we get $25,000 off it. So that is including that $25,000 off the 1.5. If we did a full prepaid discount, it's another $49,000. And then pricing level discount, which was another $17,000. So I know if we factor in the 2 of them, we were looking at about Was that these two numbers, Jordan?
Yes, sir.
So that was a little over $100,000 that we would save in discounts by doing a 50% prepaid. But it was brought to my attention that obviously with compounded interest, our money that is going to make much more money in leaving it in the bank versus paying that $100,000 or getting that $100,000 discount, which is why I had him come back to us and say, I want you to work the numbers again. Show me what the discounts are with 50% down. Show me the numbers with 0 down. So obviously, our money is going to make much more money in our own bank, and we anticipate that amount. Wait the 3 years, and then we pay that amount at that time. And that would be my recommendation.
And no money is due until the trucks are delivered as well, so there's no payments.
That's a good point, Councilmember.
So one of the things that assumes, however, is that we actually build it into our budget and plan for that, I don't know, at least 1/3. If it's going to take us 3 years for delivery, we need to have that money in 3 years. It only works about, we're going to make more money in interest if we invest that money, if we actually generate that capital and then put it somewhere in an investment vehicle where it will earn money. So, Ms. Turner, did we budget for at least 1/3 of the purchase of a fire truck in our current budget, or is that what we're discussing tonight, adding it to the budget?
That's what we're discussing tonight. So remember, one of the discussions that we've been having is on the interfund loan that is due from the golf course back to the general fund, which is about $1.9 million. The recommendation that council could consider is to make that repayment from the golf course to the general fund, and then put that money as earmarked, I guess the word is committed, committed, and then invested in tax pool for the next, however, 36 to 42 months before you need your first one, where you will get your best interest rate. And then whatever the remaining portion is over the next few years, budget as much as we can and commit it toward that project. And then when we get closer, about 6 to 7 months out, determine if we want to do a certificate of obligation or a tax note for any of the remaining that might be owed on the 2 vehicles or the 1 vehicle, depending on which way you go.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, that $1.9 million interfund transfer that would come from the golf course into the general fund, that represents a little bit more than 50% of what the down payment would be, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then we could either choose to make that down payment to the fire truck company and get the discounts, or we invest it with tax pool at a rate that will earn us how much more money than what we would save if we were to make the 50% discount. Do you have those numbers of what the current rates are that we would expect to get as a return?
Yes, give me 1 second.
It's 1.5% right now. We're getting $32,000 a month in interest.
So the interest rate in tax pool right now is about 5% per month. So I included in your coverage if we invested the 1.5 million, I did 1.5 at 4.5% for the 3 years, that you would essentially get an interest rate of $227,000, which far surpasses any cost savings that you would get by putting 50% down.
It balanced out to about 100,000 was the discount, so that's superseded by almost double.
Okay, so certainly never been a secret that I always prioritize our safety and first responders for the fire department and UCPD being among the, obviously those are the 2 main ones. So I think it's pretty obvious we need to start planning for the future purchases of those 2 trucks. If our backup truck right now isn't actually serving as a backup truck because it's in the shop, we are currently without a backup. So I think that certainly speaks volumes towards the urgency with which we need to get this planned off. Mr. Mayor, I'll yield the rest of my time, turn it back over to a fellow council member. Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Bulman.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you? So, all right, so you gave us a list, which was kind of what one of my questions was. So we've got 3. Do you want, I'm sorry, you probably explained this, but I don't quite understand it. Do you want 4 trucks? As in, or you're gonna sell your 2006 and your 2008?
we're gonna weigh that out. So we're gonna look, obviously I'll have Jordan come in and look at the trucks. Because we're 3 or 4 years out on those trucks, what they would do is they would come in and they have a buyer. That buyer looks at those trucks. He's gonna give us his best guess estimate of what that truck is gonna be worth in 4 years when we take possession of the new one. He makes that offer. That offer is good for 4 years. We don't have to go with that that offer. We can sell the apparatus after we take possession of our new one. We look for an independent buyer and sell it outright. But no, our plan is to always operate with a primary engine, a secondary engine, and a ladder truck.
Okay, so
You're
you're,
asking for 2 vehicles.
okay,
They'll become the primary pumper and the primary ladder.
The
ones that are
2017
primary
will hang
now
back.
will become the secondaries.
okay, the
Ones that
2017
are
will hang
secondaries
back.
now, they'll sell.
And then the other two, the probably sell. So you're not, because I thought from your last presentation that you said you wanted to have 2 ladder trucks, so you had 1 for backup at all times and 2 pumpers, so you'd always have backups, but that's not right. Okay, just make sure, 'cause that's what I wrote down, so I'm clear on
That's
wrong.
what the cities around us are doing, but no, not us.
So you just want 1 ladder truck, 2
2 engines.
2 engines, and that way you have 1 as a backup. And then the dates that you gave us, the 49 months and the 52, that's kind of what was, you said 49 to 52 for the 2006, and then 42 to 45 for the latter. That's how much life they had left in them, right?
No, that's
So-
all before they're delivered.
That's
If you
before
order
they
it
take
today, that's how long it takes to get there.
Okay, delivery, okay, hold on.
So
I'll
if
change
we
my
place
notes.
the order today, we're looking at 3 to 4 years before we'll take possession.
Okay, well then my next question is, what is the lifespan then of these 2006 and 2008? How much
So
time do they
we
have
follow
left?
We follow an FPA standard,
Okay,
and the standard is for the primary engine to stay into service for the 10 years, and then we use it for 20-year life, depending on, a lot of things factor into it, how hard it's being used, the mileage, but we try to follow that 20-year standard. So we'll take that primary engine after its being as a main engine and move it to its last 10 years as a backup, and we bring in that new primary engine. So we're on that 20-year cycle
About
with
20
that
years.
FPA. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. So where we're at right now with the ladder truck, technically we would take possession before that 20-year term. But because of where we're faced at another 4 years at that time, I'm behind the curve if I
I
don't.
gotcha.
So I get the biggest bang for my buck by buying both of them at the same time.
that's all I got, thank you.
Thank you.
So the discount, just to clarify, if we buy 2, we're basically saving about 50,000, is that right?
Actually, it was a little about 61,000.
25,000 on one and 36
About
on the other.
61,000,
Yeah,
correct?
61, yeah.
About 61,000.
Right, so that doesn't seem like a big number when we're looking at 3.1 million, right? And if you have a 20-year life on the ladder, and it's another 2 years after, so we're at 1.7 million for 2 years. If we do some like interest rate math on that, that'd be another 160,000 if we waited 2 more years to buy the ladder. And aren't we also kind of creating an issue where 10 years down the road, we're gonna buy 2 trucks again, or we're always in this kind of 2 at the same time replacement
No,
cycle?
we shouldn't have to. This should set us up
Or
for
20, or whatever the next cycle is,
Yeah.
they're both gonna hit at the same time again, right?
10 years. So obviously the engines get run much more than the ladder truck does, but we could be faced with the ladder truck should still be able to feasibly function. I'm hoping this 4 and 5 year cycle gets better over time. Obviously, we're hoping that it gets better. But no, I'd say worst case scenario, yes, in 10 years, we would be looking at buying another maybe first line apparatus and bring that other one back into secondary. But I think we'll be able to truck along for several more years with that ladder. The reason we're faced with buying the ladder and the engine at the same time is not only are we looking at the $61,000 of savings, that's very small compared to the fact that he says these apparatus are going up 7% a year. If we don't lock into another ladder now, and we're gonna get 20 years of service out of that ladder, we could be faced with paying twice as much in another 3 or 4 years when we decide to buy that. We're gonna save a tremendous amount right now buying that ladder truck, because we would wait additional 2 more years after we took possession of this engine to buy that secondary ladder truck. We're already behind the curve because I'm gonna have to wait 4 years for that. So if I wait and buy an engine now, we wait and let that engine come in 4 years, we place that in service, I'm still I'm a year and a half away from being at my 20 years on that ladder. If I ordered today, or order the day I take possession of that, I'll be out of date on a ladder truck for 2 years before that other one comes in.
If it's still a 4-year time.
If it's still a 4-year thing, yeah. And I'm probably gonna pay, what you just said, what'd you say, 7% a year is what these apparatus were being faced?
1.5 million, that's 105,000.
Yeah, so looking at the
annually.
Looking at the 1.75% increase, we know that's coming July 28th. On your pumper, it's 17,594, and on the aerial, it's 25,166. That's just 1.75. We don't generate these price increases. That comes from the manufacturer. We're a dealer for that manufacturer. And they don't tell us what those price increases are until, what, 2-3 months ahead?
Yeah, I'll speak. The price increase is driven by multiple items such as inflation, cost of goods. Quite honestly, the war in Ukraine has driven the cost of steel, aluminum, stuff like that up. So if we look at our numbers over the last 2 years, we've actually gone, the cost of fire trucks, not just from Pierce, but across the board. The cost of fire trucks have gone up by average about 20% over the last 2 years. It's historically, though, they've historically only gone up about 3 to 5% prior to the pandemic. After the pandemic, due to a bunch of supply chain issues, and I mean, everybody's seen it in their personal lives as well, and some of the commodity issues that we're having, it's really driven the cost up. We're starting to see it level out now, but as Jordan stated, on average, what we're anticipating is about 7% a year now. We're thinking it's starting to level out, but so if you factor it in, we have chosen to go the route of quarterly increases compared to our competitors who are doing yearly increases. And the reason for that is because, quite honestly, because of the marketplace, it wasn't keeping up. The price increase, doing it a quarter, was not keeping up with the cost of inflation. So what was happening from a lot of other manufacturers and a lot of other places where they were having to go back. If you remember when the cost of wood went up drastically, and a lot of dealers or builders were coming back and saying, hey, I actually need another $20,000 to finish this house. We have chosen as an organization and as a manufacturer to not do that. So that's why we're doing it quarterly, because we can kind of control those costs a little better by doing it that way.
Okay, then just one more question, I'll be filling my time. Pre-pandemic, what was the typical lead time on a fire truck?
Beautiful. It was all pre-pandemic. We were looking at about, depending on the truck, a pumper was typically about 15 months, and a ladder truck was about 18. And after the pandemic, we're where we're at now. And several things have has caused that to happen. As you know, I wish we are a sole source provider, but obviously we do rely on other outside vendors to build things. Just, I'm sure you guys are seeing it throughout the community. It's as far as hiring help, getting stuff. The supply chain issues have slowed as far as what they can produce. And then the other issue we're having is when COVID hit and everything shut down, it started a snowball of backlog. Because now what we could get in 12 months, because everything was on hold, now when they went back to produce it, now I gotta make that plus the orders that were coming in. And then the departments started saying, oh, now lead times are out 2 years. I need to buy my truck. I need to buy this year's and next year's truck now. So that's created a bigger snowball of backlog across the industry. When we look at the FEMA numbers, which are the numbers for fire apparatus sales, not just for my brand, but across the board, all manufacturers have gone up since the pandemic. And across the board, nationwide, used to sell about 4,000 fire trucks across the country. We're up into the 7,500 range now across not just my manufacturer, but as a whole. So there's a lot of factors that's been driving the build times.
So one of the other things that's driving it is obviously everybody's buying fire trucks. So all the fire trucks that were bought are all hitting that around 20-year age. Not to mention, we are recently seeing a huge influx of ESDs being created. those ESDs that didn't buy apparatus before are now trying to fill stations. And there is a huge supply and demand for the apparatuses for every one of these rural communities creating ESDs.
The Patriot Act,
yes.
There was a ton of COVID money out there that a lot of municipalities had, and they turned that over to as well as mine. So it's really driven, it's driven sales up, which is also driving build time, unfortunately.
Yeah, we don't know when we will see relief as far as lead times. Now, there's things our manufacturer is doing. For instance, we just added a 100,000 square foot rescue and aerial facility. So there's a lot of shuffling as far as our manufacturer because of the growth. So in Appleton, Wisconsin is where we're based. We just added that new facility. A lot of the new cab manufacturer actually moved to Tennessee. We have a manufacturer in Florida. So we've had a lot of moving because of growth, but that hasn't relayed into that lead time just yet. And we don't know when we'll see that. So the lead times that are presented are accurate right now. Those could get worse, those could get better, but as of right now, that's what they are. We're hoping that they'll get better with some of those additions that we've added. Every time we go up to the factory, it's changed because of the growth. They're constantly moving stuff around to speed that process up. But these lead times are what they are today. So we're not going to make false promises to you. They could get better, they could get worse.
And one of the other things is, I don't want to say putting a pause on, it's not necessarily putting a pause, but what is causing one of the lead time issues right now, to give you a really accurate, is, as Gordon mentioned, is the emissions that are coming in 2027. So if you're not familiar with emission standards, 2027 emission standards for diesels go into effect, which change up the engine requirements across the board. And the two biggest suppliers for engines, which is Cummins and PACCAR, they have decided to implement their engine in 2026, so they're going to be 1 year ahead. So we are at the mercy of the engine EPA standards as well. So we're waiting on, that's the other thing, is we're still waiting on basically the specs for those. As far as when I say waiting on the specs, we know the horsepower outage and all that. I'm talking about the actual dimensions. We can put them in between our frame rails, to make sure they go in there. So that kind of slows down the delivery time a little bit. Once we have all that engineering done with that new engine, we're also hoping that'll speed up the delivery.
Okay, good.
I'm convinced we need the one engine. I'm just not sure that the signing on the dotted line for the second one, there's enough of a carrot to get us to do that. So that's where I stand. So thank you, Mary.
Okay, but I think what we're looking for tonight is you're looking for a council to give you authorization for a pumper and a ladder truck and give you the ability to sign the contract by the end of this month so that you can get proceeding on it, because it's something that's going to take a while.
We'd like to lock into a contract, so obviously we don't look at that price keep going up. So if we get it in and we lock into it, knowing that we got to buy them before July 28th, that will get us going up. I kind of reached out to the departments around us, like you had asked, and that may factor into it. They're all buying new ladder trucks and engines, so they're probably part of the reason why we're going to wait 4 years. So.
Okay, all right, let's go ahead. Yes, Ms. Bulman.
Sorry, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
You all probably already know the answer to this, probably an easy one, but when you lock into a contract, if it is done earlier, like pretend the fire truck magically is done in 2 years, do we have to still pay then, or is your contract tied to whatever it says? Like, you said this was 3.5, this one's 4 years. Is that what your contract's tied to? Or if he's like, hey, it's magic and it's done in 2 years, are you gonna be like, I want all my money now and here's your truck?
So he clearly said earlier that, we would have to pay at the time that we take possession.
So even if it comes early?
If it comes early, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, we're budgeting for these through the 3 years. I don't foresee that it hasn't happened. I don't. As a matter of fact, I think we might wait a little longer than what they're anticipating. But it's a good question. But and then we would probably have to weigh our options to say, would we do a certificate or whatever, so we can go ahead and pick the apparatus up today and we make payment.
These lead times are very accurate. We know how long the engineering takes. We know how long it takes to build the fire truck. It really only takes about 6 to 8 months to build the fire truck. The engineering is what really takes a long time. So we don't just kind of throw these numbers up there. They're pretty dang accurate.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good, thanks. All right, I'd be glad to entertain a motion. to approve these, their requests for the bumper and fire and the ladder truck, and to execute that contract by the end of July.
Move to approve.
Councilmember Najarian,
Second.
second Councilmember Fitzpatrick. Any further discussion, anyone? All right, Mr. Buck, I see you're nodding, no more discussion. Okay, let's call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Buck,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's press on. You got your authorization, let's go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go. Moving on to tab number F, discuss and consider resolution 955. It's a resolution authorizing a project which will facilitate installation of a new or expanded commercial development located at 2921 Hooker Road, number 100, and which was approved by the Board of Directors of the University City Economic Development Corporation on July 13th, and providing for an effective date. And this is our first reading. So,
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sir. Bella Sera is a new Italian food restaurant near Universal City, located at 2921 Hooker Road, Suite 100. It was previously the Holy Crab Suite. They approached the EDC and asked for some assistance through the storefront improvement program to help them get signage for their new business. They got 3 quotes that turned in with their application. They were included in your packet. The quote was for a 36-inch storefront sign that's backlit with LED, as well as 2 pylon signs to go on the multi-tenant signs for the shopping center. The lowest quotes came in from Red Hot Signs in the amount of $11,679.04. And the EDC approved unanimously at their meeting on July 13th to reimburse them $6,000, provided that they spend the $11,679.
okay, any questions? Kristen? Yes.
I just have one. I think you just answered it, but I'm just gonna double check. They are getting a sign on Pat Booker, not just the one that's physically on the building.
They're getting the one on the building, and they're getting on 2 multi-tenant signs. So the one right next to the ATM machine, and then the one on the corner of Athenian and Centerbrook.
Okay, hold on, I'm gonna write that down. Someone asked me. One by the ATM and then the other one on Athenian
And Centerbrook.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And the bid for the signs by Red Hot Signs, I didn't hear, was there more bids, or that was just the low one that was accepted?
There was a total of 3, and the Red Hots was the lowest, and the one that has the most experience doing signs here in the city. Several of our other storefront improvement programs for signage has been with Red Hot Signs.
Yeah, and I do like Red Hot Signs, we've done a lot here, I didn't know if they were, because they've done so much here, that was.
It was the lowest bid also.
That's very good, thank you.
Okay. Do I entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
Councilmember Najarian.
Second.
Councilmember Goolsby. Further discussion? All right, call for the vote then, please.
Councilmember Najarian,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Buck,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Very good. And they have a ribbon cutting coming up. We'll cover that in a little bit. Okay, move on to tab number G then. Excuse me, to discuss and to consider appointments to the city's boards and commissions. What occurred this year, you have in front of you the listing of the individuals that applied, and I had the opportunity and privilege of interviewing every one of those individuals, whether they had the ability to reapply or to be reappointed or new, and we had quite a few new candidates that I had the chance to interview. And so what you have before you, you could see for the various ones, the Board of Adjustments, Library Commission, Planning and Zoning, Parks and Recs, the individuals that we received the applications, and my recommendations to you all. The R is for reapply, and the N is for new. And it's a really great cross-section, and I tried to take a look also at areas where people live. You can't fill every area because they have, they're volunteers. But this is what I'm recommending to you. I think we have a terrific group of individuals who have volunteered their time to serve their city. And so before you is my recommendation, and leave it up to council. So we
Are you looking for a approval on that?
Yes.
Then I will move.
Yes, it requires a motion because this council's decision, not mine. Mine is simply a recommendation.
And
And in that case, Mr. Mayor, moves to approve your list of recommended appointments to the boards and commissions of Universal City.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr.
Second.
Buck, got a second by Councilman Najarian. Do we have any other discussion? Anybody? Yes, Mr. Buck.
I have a question. It looks like everybody who applied got a seat except for one, maybe got an alternate, I think, it looks
Yes.
like on there.
Yes.
Is there a date that people can, I mean, I don't think that it was advertised super well to say, hey, anybody can want to come on our board. I know it's on the website, but it wasn't really said like, hey, can you come apply? Going forward, if somebody says they want to be on board, can they apply tomorrow for
Yes,
next year?
absolutely.
Or is that too early?
We've
What
already
is the
had,
window to be
we've
able to
already
apply?
had a couple applications since it closed.
Okay, so we could start saying people go apply.
Absolutely.
So when people apply, we keep them on the list because some of these people, you know, move or move on or whatever the case happens to be, or for whatever reason needs to drop out. So we go back to the list that we have, and then the mayor can interview them to see if they're still interested. In that case, they should fill in for a position. And then, again, next year we'll advertise it again about boards and commissions and then see who applies. But yes, we get them all year long.
And one of the individuals that applied for the library commission is looking to move into an apartment. He's not sure exactly where. That's why we put him in as a backup. Because if he stays in Universal City, then we can consider him. Certainly, if he's still interested, we'll keep his record on file, and we'll approach him again next year. But yes, you can start recruiting people right now. Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, we do have a motion and a second. So any other discussion? All right, call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Buck?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman?
Aye.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Motion passes. We do have one individual that you just approved this evening. Ms. Linda Sefton is going to be one of our new members of Planning and Zoning. Congratulations. Any other? I think you're the only one here that this evening. So thank you very much. Look forward to working with you. Definitely. Okay. All right. That concludes our business this evening. So I'll turn it over to our city manager for her comment.
Thank you, Mayor. So there was mention of the Bella Sarah ribbon cutting. That is going to be Monday, July 24th, this coming Monday at 10:30 a.m. The restaurant opens at 11, so we need to have that done lickety split. So showing up on time for them would be very important. We have two other ribbon cuttings that are coming up, and we'll make sure that obviously we're going to post this, but we'll email you the Outlook reminder as well. Cimarron Park, that is going to be on Friday, the 28th of July at 10 a.m. before it gets hot. And then Veterans Park on Friday, the 11th of August, also at 10 a.m. This last weekend, we had a movie in the park. It was very, very hot. I was told that once the sun went down and the breeze picked up, it wasn't that bad. We do have one last movie in the park. That is Saturday, August 5th. I think they had water slides this last time. They're going to have a foam pit on the August 5th one. If you've never been in a foam pit, it's actually quite an unusual experience. That'll be from 7 to 8:30. And then the movie that they're showing is Minions, The Rise of Gru. Never seen it, so maybe that'll be interesting. The other thing that we have coming up is Public Works is going to start doing the prep work for the road that goes through the Cibolo Creek and pops out on the ETJ on 1518. So if anybody sees some extra work going on in that area, it is our Public Works crew starting on that. On August 1st, our auditor will be present to do the audit presentation for fiscal year 2022. Sal, who you know is our golf pro out in Olympia, did tell me that so far this year, rounds are up 1,200 more rounds than the same time last year. In spite of the heat, people are still coming out and golfing, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the reuse water contract that we have. So that's all I have tonight, sir.
Okay, very good. So we'll start out this evening with our traveling man out there, Mr. Buck. Do you have anything to offer to everybody?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, my apologies that I got in here late due to circumstances beyond my control. For the record, I'm having a blast out here in Colorado, up at about 8,000 feet. My RV took us across the Great Divide on I-70. It was slow going, but we made it. So Councilmember Buck, representing the city of Universal City to some of the residents of Colorado, spreading the joy, spreading the message about how great it is down there. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to join via Zoom tonight, and sorry for all the heat you guys are experiencing. It was a balmy 85 degrees today on the lake.
Thank you, Stephen. Enjoy your vacation. All right. Ms. Goolsby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If he starts talking about weather again, mute him. So I just wanted to tell everybody thank you for your patience with me being on Zoom so much. And I am glad to be back up here. And then I'm very proud of our fire department. They require the building committee to live and die by the NFPA, and I'm glad to see that they are following that as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Christina.
Thank you. I was going to say that casino night is this Friday. Tickets are available on the website. If you'd like to buy your tickets, it's going to be great fun. The proceeds each year go to a different nonprofit. This year they're going to Parks Partners, which is the group that helps host the pumpkin patch. So I encourage everybody to come out. I think it's going to be a great time. And the only other thing I was going to say is, I was wondering if it would be feasible for us to, as a general rule, start to be getting the minutes from each of the boards that meet each month, like maybe the first agenda, the first Tuesday that we have ours, that they're added just so that we review what's being discussed. Instead of just what comes before us, we can read. And I know we have access to them, but it would be nice if it was included as part of our packet.
Right, let me check. Don't we do that in the second agenda
They should
packet
be
of
going
each
in
month?
tabs E's for the second agenda
Yes.
packet. So
Okay,
if it
great.
hasn't been, they will be again.
Okay,
I
thank
agree.
you.
Yes, it should be great for everybody to be able to see those minutes from the various boards.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, Phil.
Hey, Mayor, I'd like to ask my fellow council members, I kind of mentioned this a few months ago, but about maybe creating a council message board on the website so we can share information, and if we ask questions of Ms. Turner, that we can all see the answers prior to the meeting. And so you wouldn't have to necessarily hear me ask as many questions at the meeting, and then we could do that in advance. So, and it also saves them some time. So are you guys interested in having that on a future agenda, and having them investigating it and presenting that to us?
Yeah, I think that.
Yes.
Okay, I think the consensus that we'd like to be able to explore this further. Definitely. Okay. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I had to go into the parking lot of the golf course today, and it was extremely hot. I just got off the house. I was sweating bullets, and the parking lot was just about full, so I was really glad to see that. Also, sorry to miss the movies in the park this weekend. I always like going to those, but I was out of town. I was out of town because I had my birthday, and I wanted to thank everybody for reaching out and just all the well wishes that I got. Was I got a lot when I was overwhelmed by the outreach from Universal City citizens. So I want to thank everybody publicly for that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley?
All right, so since Phil brought it up and he talked about doing possibly the blackboard, I know a while back we had asked about possibly putting certain things on the agenda, like he just tried to put something on the agenda, and then we also talked about the lady at Capona Ridge one night, and we talked about the fence permit one night, and then we talked again personally about how council members are supposed to put things, like doing a procedural agenda item. Is there any chance that's coming up soon so that we can put things on the agenda and like we all know how to do it? Like, and if it's the next agenda or if it's 2 agendas or if there's like some sort of like a rules and procedures so that all of us can know what we're doing. I don't know if I'm asking to put that on the agenda again. Does that make sense? Like,
You're interested in maybe having a discussion on some of the procedures?
So
yeah, like is there a way we can have a...
We do have those coming. So the fence and the grass are for the August 1st agenda.
Okay.
And I have drafted a council code of conduct and operating procedures. I've given the copies to the mayor to review.
Okay.
And so I'm going to assume that he's going to have a chance to look at those soon. I know he's been working with the boards and council members.
Yeah.
We'll have that, and then also we'll have Ms. Santee look at them to make sure that they comply with state law and our city charter. So yes, we will have your procedures and your conduct coming up for you as well.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, good. Just a couple of quick items. Everybody aware of the community impact newspaper that comes out? Really an outstanding article about the future of flourishing multifamily housing, and Michael is quoted in the article. This paper really does, I think, an outstanding job of trying to represent all the areas in the Metrocom, and I want to commend them for that. And it's indicative, I think, of many of the potential developers that have come to us over the past 6 or 7 or 8 months, even longer. That multifamily is such an incredibly popular way for people to live these days. And if we can take advantage of them, we have the ability to do it, and the developers meet our requirements, everything is good. Just a quickie on Saturday, 7 Brew had their, Thursday, what was it, Friday? I can't remember what day it was. Thursday. They had the ribbon cutting. Saturday, I had the opportunity to go back out there again, and I got to meet the owner, who lives in Maine, and his son, who operates the whole area here, he lives in Dallas. And then there's a team members that are all around the area there. So I want to thank you guys for going Thursday. It's really good. And Randy had some crew guys out there in front of that building today because there was some challenges, and I think that's all being taken care of. It was really, really good. So really good. And also the 7 Brew that just opened up here. That's the 100th brew of shop, and they're going to. I think they have plans for quite a few more in the state of Texas. So if you haven't tried it yet, it's not just coffee, it's all kinds of other good stuff, all these kinds of little drinks with flavors and all kinds of stuff in them. So anyway, thanks everybody for attending this evening. The audience, thank you very much. I want to talk to you a little bit, or Mike, because there's going to be a planning and zoning workshop at the Elmore County Council of Governments coming up in a couple of weeks. So I think we can get that information to you, because if you can make it, that would really be a good one. And it's also open to anybody in the council that wants to go as well, for sure.
Mayor, we'll forward that. We're waiting for you to do the approvals tonight, but we'll forward that to all the members on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Perfect. And anyone in council would like to attend, I think ACOG puts on a great workshop, get all the principles of what's going on in the P&Z world. And I think Cynthia probably will be a participant in that.
I probably will.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming this evening, and this meeting is now adjourned. It is 8:45.